Hi, everybody. I'm Matt.
I'm Dean.
Welcome to another episode of The Real DMV, your backstage pass to all things film-related in the D.C., Maryland, and Virginia area. Dean, we just got done interviewing what I want to call our biggest guest yet.
I'm so excited. You know, they're all big in their own way, but this was a get for us in the beginning. We never thought that we were going to be able to get this guest on, and so I think we're coming from the same school of thought on that.
For sure. This was a stretch goal for us when we first started this podcast, and lo and behold, this gentleman was very generous with his time and responded right away when we reached out. He is a actor and a acting coach. He is very prolific on YouTube as well. And we're talking about the great KURT YUE from Atlanta.
Yeah, Kurt's been able to help us, Matt and I, in our journeys, and he's helped a lot of other people. He's an actor known for Cobra Kai, Ozark, Dope Sick, Black Widow. That's a Marvel movie. The Haunting of Hill House. I had a chance to ask him a question about that. The movie Tag, A Bad Mom's Christmas, and Vampire Diaries. The list goes on.
Juror number 2 with Clint Eastwood.
Kurt's an acting coach and the founder of the Acting Career Center. That's actingcareercenter.com, teaching new actors the art of creating a career in film and TV, giving all actors tools and resources for self-tape auditions. He's been very good. Has a ton of videos out there on how to self-tape, and hosting live Zoom workshops to work on your acting chops. He's also got a free cheat sheet called 10 Steps to a Killer Audition, which is downloadable on his website. He also started an online networking community for actors called the Actors Growth Lab, featuring live workshops, question and answer sessions, and industry guests. And Matt and I have been enjoying Kurt's lessons on YouTube for years. He talks about being an actor in Atlanta, self-taping, as we mentioned before, and pretty much anything under the sun revolving around film today. And it was a great time to get to talk with him and pick his brain. So without further ado, KURT YUE. Kurt.
Hey guys, how's it going?
It's going. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Fantastic. It's good to see you. Great to have you. We just got your email this morning for the Actors Growth Lab.
Awesome.
Thank you for taking the time to do this, by the way. I know you're busy.
Appreciate that, guys. That's an honor for me to be here, and I mean, blown away to know that inspired you guys to create what you guys have done with your own channel, with your own podcast. This is awesome.
We try to do something called Two Truths and a Lie at the beginning, the outset of these interviews. So we're going to kind of put you on the spot for a second, and we'll see if you can help us out with this. So Two Truths and a Lie. Kurt, you were born in Beijing, China, and moved to the U.S. when you were 4.
Uh-huh.
You were a software developer out of college until you walked by an acting school in Ohio and thought you'd give acting a shot.
Uh-huh.
And third, you once auditioned for a Marvel movie, but turned it down because of a scheduling conflict. Two truths and a lie.
So which one is the lie?
Exactly.
I'm trying to actually. The first two are definitely truths. The third one. I mean, I've auditioned a ton. I can't even remember. I don't think I've turned down a Marvel movie for a scheduling conflict.
Okay.
I told you, I said that third one, he might be like, no, actually I had to.
Yeah, well,
I have turned down other auditions for scheduling conflicts before, but I don't think it's happened with Marvel.
Okay. We know you've definitely auditioned for and been in Marvel movies, Black Widow.
Yes.
And that sort of thing. So, and we watched your videos on that. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience from the outset? What it was like for you as a working actor in Atlanta to audition for a Marvel movie?
Yeah, it was incredible. Well, I mean, we can kind of backtrack a little bit in terms of just the Atlanta market in general. I mean, before I moved down here, I was very naive to how big the industry was here in Atlanta. Probably like many people, especially 9 years ago around the time that I moved. So it took, I met a couple actors that were from Atlanta while I was living in Cleveland, and they were working on various projects, and they said they were from out of town, and I just assumed they were from Los Angeles, and then they explained to me they were from Atlanta, and there's a lot going down there, and that was kind of the driving force for me to start researching, and eventually came down here. But I don't think most people, even a lot of people in the industry, would have guessed, this would have been 5, 6 years ago, that the vast majority of the Marvel productions were filmed in Georgia. A lot of the movies, a lot of the TV shows, the Disney Plus shows, they were pretty much all filmed, or a lot of them were filmed in Pinewood, now Trilith Studios, south of Atlanta. And Black Widow was not entirely filmed in Georgia, but there were portions filmed in Georgia, so they cast a lot of the local actors for the supporting roles. And that's how I got involved in Black Widow. And, when I got the audition for Black Widow, it was so I had already been in Atlanta. This was 2019, so I'd already been there over 6 years now, or no, sorry, over 3 years at that point, and had a handful of Marvel auditions prior to that for other Marvel projects that were so even though it was exciting, it wasn't the first one, so it wasn't like, hair on fire, like, oh my God, I got a Marvel audition. But it, I remember getting it. I remember sending in a self-tape for it. They were kind of dummy sides. They gave us these audition sides that didn't make a whole lot of sense. So we had to kind of just like try to figure it out, and sent in that audition. I was kind of in the middle of moving from one place in Atlanta to a new place. And during that moving period is when I found out that I booked the job just off the self-tape, no callback, nothing like that. And the booking process was kind of crazy because the message I got from my agent was, hey, you're booked for this untitled Marvel project, and you may have to go to the UK as early as tomorrow. And this was like a Thursday, and they said as early as Friday. So just get ready. And I was in the process of moving, and I was trying to, close on a new place and all this stuff. And I'm like, all right, let's figure this out. And luckily, they pushed it to the following Monday, so I had a weekend to kind of get everything in order so that I could actually go. But it was kind of nuts, just not too much information. Go, you show up, and then the experience itself of filming in London we were there. I say they cast 6 of us out of Atlanta, flew us to the UK. We were there for about 3 weeks, just under 3 weeks, and we were on set for a total of 3 days. So it was kind of a paid vacation. We were either working on a Marvel movie or just being paid tourists in London. So
I remember that from your video. You said that they gave you a car and they said, "Hey, we're gonna tour you around." You said it was the greatest time of your life.
Can't imagine how much money you got to have to just be like, "Hey, take a driver and a van, and we'll tour you around the city if you want us to."
So, going back so what was the inflection point or the aha moment when you decided, I got to move from Ohio to Atlanta? Like, what was that point in your career? What was the trigger point?
That's a great question. And when I was in Ohio, again, being naive to any secondary markets and just thinking that everything was made in Hollywood, right? I had seen some of my friends from my acting class that had moved to Hollywood and been in LA for a number of years. And I had gone out to visit them and stuff like that. And it didn't seem like that's what I wanted to do, right? I didn't want to go out to LA and just be living in these tiny apartments and struggling just to get by, and the cost of living, especially compared to Cleveland, which was one of the lowest cost of living places in the country, to make that jump, I really didn't want to do it. And I was pretty content in my head of like, all right, I'm gonna continue working as a software developer in Ohio, and acting would be my side hustle, right? Acting would be my side gig, and I'll do the local commercials and industrial videos and things like that. Maybe once in a blue moon, if there's a movie coming in town, I get a chance to audition for that. But I wasn't really trying to move to LA. And so Atlanta, when Atlanta became a possibility because of the couple of people that I met that I mentioned before, I decided to go down and visit. Because we had me and the couple people that I chatted with, they told me about how it's not as expensive as LA. There's actually a lot of actors that are moving to Atlanta instead of LA, and I'm thinking, oh, if other people are doing it, maybe that's a possibility. So I decided to make a visit. I actually visited Atlanta a couple times in 2015. And then I convinced a couple of my friends from my acting class in Ohio to also come down and visit, two people that were also considering moving to LA. And when we all visited and decided we liked it, we actually got a chance to meet with some agencies in the area, and then just decided to take the leap. And having a couple friends that were going to be my roommates, we actually lived together for the first couple of years that we were down here. That all helped, ease the transition a little bit. Still didn't exactly know what to expect coming down here, especially having pretty much only a commercial resume, and trying to jump into the film and TV side of things. But yeah, it's worked out great. I mean, it was surprising for both me and honestly for my agents too. They told me that when I submitted, I had like a commercial demo reel, commercial resume. They signed me because they thought I would work well commercially without any idea if I would book theatrically at all. And it's been the opposite. Like I've barely booked maybe two or three commercials in my 9 years in Atlanta, and it's been all film and TV since I've been here. So it's been great, but kind of a leap of faith. Didn't really exactly know what to expect when I made that decision.
Well, that worked out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're gonna backtrack even further if you're okay with that. We'll talk about when you passed is it the Houde School? Is that how you pronounce the Houde School of Acting?
Hood, like
Hood.
HOOD, Hood School of Acting. Yeah,
You were walking past that. You were a software engineer.
yeah,
You were a computer guy, and you happened to walk past a storefront where
yeah,
you saw the Hood School of Acting, and you
yeah.
thought, well, I need something extra on my plate. I'll give this a shot. What was that spark? Because I know growing up, I think you were 26 when you walked past the school
hmm
and you started. So what was the impetus for that where you said, I'm going to do this?
It's a good origin story, right?
Right. Exactly.
I So when I started with the Hood School and I signed up for my first, like, they were offering an audit class for free type of thing that a lot of acting schools do. So I decided to go in. Me and my best friend from high school, we were both working in the corporate world at the time. He was working in a bank. I was working at that time. Oh, also at a bank at different banks. I was doing IT, and um, me and my buddy, we would get together. We were doing our corporate jobs, the cubicle life, right? So then we would get together after work a lot and go to happy hours and go to bars. And then I just got kind of old and we were just chatting with each other, talking about like what else can we do other than just go to a bar and drink. And so that's where, I started looking for things, and that got me into I went took a jujitsu class for a while, and we went to oh man, we went to a Toastmasters, like those free Toastmasters. We went to those, just to do something different. And one day, me and the same buddy, we were out with another friend of ours from high school, and we were leaving a bar at like 2 in the morning, and we were going home. And we happened to walk by. There's this little acting school on the same street that we were on. They were obviously closed at 2, but they had an email address. We jotted it down and just decided to send in an email and ask about it. And it was something that we just, really looking for something fun to do after work. It wasn't specifically looking for an acting class. That was not the plan at all. And I mean, the really, the part of it that sticks with me still, when you think about, whether or not things were meant to happen or whatever, is that had that had that place been even like 30 minutes away from where I lived, because it was like 10 minutes away from where I lived at the time. If it was 30 minutes away, it was like, on the other side of Cleveland, I probably would have not, I probably would have looked at it and been like, oh, this is cool. There's an acting school here, but I'm never going to come back in this area again, or I'm not going to drive all the way out here to do that. So because it was close, I was like, okay, well, maybe we'll check this out. And it's convenient. So that was the reason why I started. It was had nothing to do with acting itself. It's just, looking for something interesting and fun to do after work. And then I stayed because it was fun. I stayed without any, idea that I could, even make any money acting. I stayed just because I enjoyed it. It was a fun class. The teacher really had, created a fun environment and made a lot of new friends there. And so I continued to do that for almost, it was probably a year, I think, or 11 months later before I actually pursued getting my first agent in in the local Cleveland area. But before that, it was just, I couldn't get enough of the class just because I enjoyed it.
Did your buddy do it with you, and did you stick with it?
Yeah, he did it with me too. He was, between the two of us, he was probably more the movie buff, but he was more on the like he was more interested on the writing, directing side of it. So he did it with me, but more because he was interested in writing stuff. And so we did collaborate while we were taking the class together. He eventually moved out of Cleveland, and obviously I did later too. But while we were both in the class, we made short films together. We participated in the 48-hour film competitions and stuff like that. So it was a really fun time to do that. And I think I took that class at the Hood School for about 8 years before moving down to Atlanta.
Wow. So we were talking about, we're going to kind of skip around just a little bit because you've done so much.
Sure.
We were talking about The Haunting of Hill House because that it seems like once you move down there, Haunting of Hill House was what, 2019, 2020?
No, I think it was before 2020. Ah,
I remember watching it during the pandemic, so maybe
Yeah.
that's why I'm thinking of it there. But you moved to Atlanta in 2015. So it was shortly after that that Haunting of Hill House took place. And so I'm going to ask you a logistical filmmaking question that we were trying to figure out. The scene where you're with Henry Thomas.
yes.
First off, it's pretty awesome that you're in a scene with E.T.'s buddy. It's fantastic. But it was so well done. I want to get to what it was like to work on that set. But you throw a series of papers onto the table.
Yeah.
And I was just telling Matt about that. And the way I just watched that scene again last night, the way you threw it, the way the camera goes from you to the table in such a perfect fashion, but they fan out perfectly.
Yeah.
Logistically, how many takes did it get for you to just take them and throw them that perfectly to have them fan out like that?
I'm gonna be honest. I do not remember. I know the scene you're talking about. And I know the shot you're talking about, and I remember rehearsing that because they, obviously it's not like the shot happened by accident, right? They had a vision in mind of what they wanted out of that scene and out of that particular shot, and so we rehearsed it. And you guys know how it is. Like when working on a set is on a film or TV set is very different than a play, right? Where you get a month of rehearsal and whatever it is. Like you don't meet the actors or the director or anybody until the day of, and then you kind of like you don't know the set you're going to be on until like 15 minutes before you're shooting. So you get there and then you kind of talk through the scene with everybody and we block it out and they have an idea for a shot and then we try it. I don't recall like if it was something that took like 50 takes, I probably would have remembered. So I don't recall that it was something that took a long time, maybe just a handful of takes, and then one of them it just happened to work out. I imagine that props and they probably had it already slightly fanned out for me so that the perfect toss would just open up for the camera in the way that they wanted. But it's very collaborative, as you guys know. So I do my job as best I can, and then let everybody and the camera person and everybody we all try to make it all come together at the end.
Yeah, yeah. And it might seem like a weird question. The reason I was asking you that is a lot of people might not realize that. Newer actors that are just they're starting from zero.
Yeah.
You think about the dialogue, you think about the settings, maybe the lights, but maybe the little things like that
Yeah.
you wouldn't think of on a set. You wouldn't think that you'd wake up one day and maybe have to do 50 takes of just throwing, that's part of your daily routine, and they
Nothing
need the
looks the way
perfect.
it does by accident.
Right,
So,
exactly.
Yeah. I
so
think that's a great point because it's one of the things that I try to remind, especially younger actors and younger newer actors that are so excited to get into it, but like want to just take the leap rather than taking the steps to get there and just like, oh, I can't wait to get into a Marvel movie, right? And I caution people, I was like, I don't think the first time you ever act should be on a Marvel movie. You're gonna be so bombarded. You know what I mean? You're like, the drinking out of a fire hose analogy, right? You're gonna be
Right.
so bombarded with all of these different things that you have to know on top of your lines, which is just a small aspect of it. And if you have to think about all these things and you're just not used to doing all these things, there's no way you're going to be able to perform at your highest.
be
And if you
easily
want to perform
overwhelmed.
at
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, 100%.
So,
So,
so, so my observation is, it's not a great revelation here, but you get cast in a lot of co-star procedural roles. Doctors, police, agents, detectives, attorneys,
yeah.
forensic examiners. One, do you feel like that's kind of your sweet spot? And more specifically, what was the casting and auditioning process like for the juror number 2? And did you get to interact with Clint Eastwood in terms of direction?
Yeah, let's talk
It's a
about that.
lot. I threw a lot at you. So
Oh, that's great. Juror number 2, similar to like 90+% of the auditions that I've done since I've come to Atlanta, they were all self-tape, and the vast majority of them, again, over 80-90%, have been booked off of tape. So without any sort of callback or anything. So sent in the self-tape for it and heard back later on that I booked it. Um, Traveled down to Savannah, Georgia. That's where they filmed the majority of the movie. So they built this beautiful courtroom inside one of the stages down there in Savannah. And as far as interacting with Clint, look, this is something that I will never forget because one of their producers, Jessica, when I came on the set, on because I only had the one day because I was just a witness on a witness stand, had one scene, and that's it. A couple other people also, I think, were day players for that day. And when I got on the set, one of the first people to greet me was Jessica. I can't remember her last name, but one of the producers, and she was very welcoming, and then also said, "Hey, before you wrap, we're gonna make sure that you get some time to chat with Clint, um, and before you go home." And it's just what a great gesture because they know, right? And I'm sure they wouldn't do it without Clint's approval and without Clint wanting to do it, right? So, for him and his team to recognize like what he means to people, right? And to make sure that that happens and not put us in the awkward position to ask for it, right? That they initiate that was incredible. And she offered it in the beginning of the day. Um, by the time I finished my scene, I was done. They were ready to get me to, load me back on the van to take me back to base camp. I wasn't going to push the issue. If they forget about it, they forget about it. It was cool that they offered it, and they thought of it. And honestly, I was walking back to the van, ready to go to base camp. Jessica comes like running after me, like basically pulls me by the sleeve. He's like, "You're not leaving." He's like, and then she said, "Come on, we got to get you some time to chat with Clint." They brought the set photographer over and said, "Hey, we'll get you some pictures as well." And he was so gracious and kind, and spending some individual time with all of the day player actors, and I'm sure the crew members as well. So yeah, it was. I definitely won't forget that. Just as a great moment with a just an icon like him, but just knowing that they thought about these things and actually put the time into welcoming those of us that look up to him.
That's a gracious gesture on their part. I mean, and I also heard he's not a big ad nauseum retake kind of director. Once he feels like he's got it, he's like, okay, let's just move on. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, it felt that way for sure. And you know, he's 93 now, 94, and he's still going strong and very opinionated about his scenes. But like you said, once he's happy with it, he's like, all right, let's move on. And when I was there, I don't know if this was the way throughout the entire shoot, but you know, he's got to kind of take it easy at his age, so he's in his director's chair watching. And our first AD was kind of the guy running the show, right? But he would be relaying all whatever notes that Clint had, or if it's time to move on, it's time to move on. It was pretty quick, but they're getting what they're getting. I mean, you see the movie, and it's
tight.
Amazing.
It's tight.
Amazing work
Yeah.
with just a few takes.
Well, juror number 2 was in Savannah, and a lot of the stuff that you've done has been in Atlanta. Is that the market that you find yourself working the most in? The Atlanta market, the southeast?
Yeah, the Southeast in general, but then also, primarily in Atlanta. The vast majority that I've booked is, within the Atlanta metro area, and I haven't had to travel a ton. I've worked in Chicago, I've worked in California, I've worked in other cities in the Southeast as well, but the most has been in Atlanta. I think partially because of obviously the film tax credit in Georgia, and then Atlanta, the city itself being the major hub. There's so many sound stages that have either they were converted sound stages from old warehouses, or sound stages that were built right for filming. New ones are continuing to go up, and I think they just have the infrastructure here, right, for production.
Right.
So there's a lot in Atlanta, and then there are also in a lot of the surrounding cities and states in the Southeast too.
I remember coming to Atlanta a couple years ago. We drove past Screen Gems,
Yeah.
which was right around the corner, I think, from where some of the Cobra Kai scenes had been filmed. There's a McDonald's and a shopping center up that way. So, and then which isn't too far from Walking Dead locations. I mean, you can throw a stick and hit another filming location from one to the other in Atlanta, and it's pretty nice. But I think Matt was going to bring this up, but if you don't mind, I'll bring this up.
Go for it. I don't know what it is, so go for it.
Well, we were talking about where KURT usually works,
All right.
but you worked at least once, I think, in Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Is
Gotcha.
that?
Yeah, at least once. I think I want to say probably 2 or 3 times in Virginia.
Oh, okay.
You guys might know better than me. I'm trying to rack my brain.
So I think what you're getting at is Dope Sick.
Yes.
Oh,
So my friend Dean here was also on Dope Sick. I think he maybe fell on the cutting room floor, but
Well, if you blink, you'll probably miss me. Yeah. I just played a Purdue exec in the studio in the Richmond part, but some of it was also filmed you actually worked with Michael Keaton in Dope Sick and had scenes with him. And I know he filmed a lot of his scenes in Clifton Forge, Virginia. And he was gone by the time I got there. So he had filmed all of his scenes and went up to Canada to work on his next project. And so I did more of mine in the actual studio. Our acting coach played a nurse in another scene there. But to take a step back, were you in Clifton Forge or were you in the Richmond part when that was filmed?
I wouldn't be able to tell you.
He says, I saw trees, there were cows.
I think I was in Virginia.
I
Could have been
was
West
in Virginia.
Yeah.
I could look back into my emails and look for the call sheet, and I would know, but I can't remember off the top of my head.
Well, what was the preparation for working with Michael Keaton? Was that a pretty standard for you?
Just not try to fangirl out, right? When you're working with Batman. Yeah, he was also another very gracious, and it was one of those that, unfortunately, was right smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. pre-vaccines or anything like that, right? And it was actually one of the first productions that was starting up, right? After the shutdown of the industry. So Dope Sick started out, and Michael Keaton's getting up there in age too. So obviously we were um, we were social distancing and everything like that. So there was absolutely no chance for me to chit chat with him at all. In a lot of sets, they'd have all the cast chairs just like right next to each other. It would have been cool if it was, if it were pre-pandemic, I might have been sitting right next to him. But we were separated way more than 6 feet. Like he had his own like little tent by himself in the soundstage, and I was sitting like all the way maybe 100 feet away or something like that. So the only time I really only interacted with him was in our scene.
Gotcha.
And then at the very end, when we wrapped, I just got to say a quick goodbye and a quick little 5-second interaction with him. But other than that, didn't get to beyond working in the scene with him. But incredible, working with an actor who's been doing it for so long. Similar to Clint, he's um, someone I looked up to and admired, and it was great getting a chance to share the screen with him.
Do you remember the director that day by chance?
I don't. I remember the writer of the show, Danny
Yeah. Danny Strong.
Strong was there.
Yeah.
I don't know if he directed the episode, but I definitely talked to him a bit on the day. So maybe he directed it as well. I can't remember.
He directed my episode. The reason I bring him up, the reason this is pertinent, because we were just talking about the pandemic when everybody's got the masks on.
Yep.
And he had been talking with me for about half the day at the time, but everybody had the masks on.
Mm-hmm.
And he just introduced himself as Danny, and I hadn't met him before that day, and it was just casual. So no fanfare, and I'm going, I know this voice. Why do I know this voice? Because just the mask is sitting here, and I had just finished watching Justified, which he's also on, and I went, I know this voice, and come to find out it was Danny. But that was another moment of being on set and just taking it all in and trying not to, fanboy out to whoever else was there. So,
right.
So I just rewatched your 8 Things I Wish I Knew Before Starting Acting, which I guess that came out 4 months ago. Your video on that, something like that. It wasn't that long ago, but it wasn't years ago. But I guess my question would be, would you add anything to that list looking back after doing that piece? And kind of for aspiring local actors and content creators, what's the one piece of advice you kind of wish someone had given you early on? Or would you revise any of that?
Yeah. Again, to be honest, I would not be able to even name you, go down the list.
Yeah, I was going to give you the list because I figured.
unless I
or just emphasize which of those points maybe,
Because, obviously there's more than 8. There's probably 20 or 30, and I just kind of boiled it down to 8 for that video. But yeah, there's so many things. I kind of depends on a lot of, when people ask me for what's the best piece of advice, it really depends on a lot of things. It depends on where people are starting from, if they're young and just getting started, if they're coming at it from, a lot of people come back to acting after working in the corporate world for a while, or, I know some people, somebody that I met in my first acting class here in Atlanta. He was a retired school teacher, so he started in his 70s, right, or in his 60s. He started after a full career. So I think one of the biggest, though, is that it's so easy for us as actors to feel like we don't have any control, and that we're waiting for the audition, we're waiting for the email or the phone call that we're booked.
Yeah, we talk about that quite a bit.
Yeah. And so, to do anything where that puts more control in your hands, whether it's in the industry or not, but it just, I think it helps from a mental health standpoint. I think it helps also just from an industry standpoint too, is not waiting for anybody to give you the opportunity to do anything and to be creative. I mentioned earlier that when I started in Cleveland, like me and my buddy, we collaborated on making short films together and things like that. And they're not looking like $100 million movies, but the fact that you're working with your friends and you're being creative with your friends, and who knows what it could, it could go to a film festival, and any of these things could potentially happen. But the process of it, of getting the chance to work on something that that is creative and you guys all believe in, and you're having fun doing it, and you're doing it with your friends, I think is so important, and just helps keep that energy and that spark alive, so to speak. Especially during the times where the industry, the corporate side of the industry is slow, like it is now, and you're not just sitting around waiting. You still have things that are driving you.
Maybe a more nuanced way to ask that is like, what mistakes do you see people making in the industry over and over again?
And one of them was one of the things that I mentioned earlier is trying to take the big leap right from the beginning, and then getting discouraged when it doesn't happen, right? As someone who's just starts out and thinks, oh, I want to get into this, I hear that I need an agent. So they just immediately start sending like selfies to agencies in the area, and they get no response, and they just get discouraged, and they think, well, I guess maybe it's just not for me. And not taking those small steps to get to that point. There's a little kind of a graphic that I like sharing of, it's just a stick figure drawing, but there's these two stick figures with two ladders in front of them, and one has like a normal ladder, and he's, 3/4 of the way up the ladder already, and this other person has a ladder with rungs that are like 8 feet apart and can't even reach the first rung, and he's still stuck at the bottom. And it's just like a simple stick figure representation of like, just take those small steps and you'll get further than if you keep reaching and reaching and reaching for that, for that further rung that you'd never get.
Love it.
Yeah. And we talk a lot about there are unknown unknowns, things that you don't know in this industry. You can't control it. You can only do so much. Yeah. And one of your videos actually helped me with one of my unknowns and helped me get an agent, because I'd been doing this for a few years, and there's the dreaded "tell us about yourself" question.
Sure.
And if you're not careful and it's not thought out, structured, whatever, that can lead to just kind of a rambling, essay of, well, I was born, so, and then in third grade, that's not what they're asking for. And they're looking for you, and you helped simplify this for me. They're looking to see how you respond on camera, maybe whether you can improvise, inflections, different little things, but they're not asking for your life story. I watched your video where you were talking about tofu.
Yeah.
And just making it a little story. And I had an interview with an agent. I wasn't sure if that question was going to come up, and I watched your video, and I thought, well, I should probably prepare something just in case, and used your video as a template. And sure enough, it's absolutely what happened. I knew they were going to ask me other things, but then they just threw in tell us about yourself.
It's a non-standard response. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so just watching your video, and we're trying to do the same thing with these videos, and some of the questions that we're asking you might not make sense initially, but just
or not at all.
Or not at all. Sure. I mean, Matt doesn't make sense a lot of the time.
Guilty.
Thank you for that, number one. But also, if people are wondering how, because I watched many videos on how to answer that question, yours was the most helpful.
Awesome.
So if anybody's wondering how to answer that question, I would implore you to watch Kurt's video, and maybe we'll put the link in the description here.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm so happy to hear that.
We haven't even gotten into the Acting Career Center or the Actors Growth Lab.
Yeah.
Which we're also a part of. And I know you had something specific you wanted to ask about that, but all valuable resources. So I'll just kind of hit the highlights here. So the Acting Career Center, and correct me if I'm wrong, teaches new actors the art of creating a career in film and TV, gives all actors tools and resources for self-tape auditions. By the way, the self-taping workshops and resources that you have are phenomenal. And host live Zoom workshops to work on your acting chops.
Yeah.
And then
I actually ended up buying the Sony
the ZV-1.
camera. Yes, I found that camera,
Nice.
the one that you used. I love it. So
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and the Actors Growth Lab is a fantastic resource for new actors asking Q&A asking questions live on Zoom and workshops and things like that. So
yeah, so how do you stay creatively inspired and juggling the kind of acting career side of this and then the content creation for your YouTube channel? I mean, because you have a massive presence there, and I'm sure it's no small effort. Do you have people helping you with the editing piece for your Actor Career Center?
No, currently I do all the editing myself. I mean, I actually enjoy the editing part. I mean, I'm a little bit of a tech nerd, so I like learning new tech and stuff like that. So especially coming from the software background, I haven't lost that completely. Um, the the website and the YouTube channel and everything itself, it started out, before I even moved to Atlanta in 2015, 14 or 15, I started out. It was originally called Small Market Actor. And the original idea for the YouTube channel was to share there was a lot of information. Well, not a lot, but there was information out there, and there were YouTube channels for actors out there about 10 years ago. But they were, as far as I could tell, the ones that I could find were very Hollywood centric. And all the advice that was given was all about Hollywood. And for me, having started in Cleveland and learned everything that I knew from what I learned in a small market, and knowing that prior to taking those acting classes, I was so naive to it all, and I would never have guessed that there were opportunities for actors in a place like Cleveland, to get an agent, to audition for paid jobs. So I decided to start a YouTube channel to kind of talk about those things first. And I wasn't super consistent with it in the beginning, and I didn't really get consistent with it until 2020, until the pandemic. And we had some extra time on our hands, so that's when I started pumping out more and more videos. And I've rebranded it to Acting Career Center. And yeah, so that's grown quite a bit. And to answer your question of, staying creatively inspired, it is difficult because especially uh, after we weren't on lockdown anymore, and then now I had the rest of my life as well, and I had to be able to plan and structure the time out of my days and weeks to make the YouTube channel, and now with the Actors Growth Lab community to create content for that as well. But I would say the inspiring aspect of it is just, I think it feeds itself, because we are doing things that are like, I'm trying to do things that I want to do as well. Inside the Actors Growth Lab community, for example, we're currently in the middle of a short film challenge. We're encouraging people to make their own short films, whether they've ever done it or not. Shoot it with shoot it with your smartphone, make it a 1 minute short film, whatever it takes to just, take that first step into creating something on your own. And it forces me, to do it as well. And it's something that I want to do, but in a structured environment like the community that we have. And then we do our own little virtual film festival screening to watch everybody's short films. And it's awesome. And it's very inspiring for all of us to be able to do it, including myself. I feel like I'm getting, plenty out of it, as the leader of the community, but I'm getting just as much out of it as the students are.
Well, without stealing thunder from your maybe an upcoming episode, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, how important do you think prioritizing networking and relationship building is over auditioning itself? And the root of that question is, once you build that network, I think, you may have people reaching out to you to say, hey, do you want this part, or do you want to audition for this, versus you hunting and pecking?
Yeah. I think it's extremely important. I think it's just a major, major part of this industry and this career. But I don't want people to kind of misconstrue it as I just got to get my name out there and I just got to get people to know me and I got to go network with like Hollywood directors or whatever it may be. I think it's, as long as you're doing it from um, a standpoint of I actually genuinely want to meet these people and I want to meet people that I want to collaborate with and eventually your network will organically kind of grow if you're doing those things rather than like we all know those like business networking events where you just like go and hand out business cards
Yeah.
and hopefully you get some clients out of it or something like that. I don't think it really works that way in our industry. It is very collaborative. I mean, I was just at my buddy's bachelor party, right? And because we're all in the same industry, like a lot of the people that he invited were also in the industry, and some people I've met and maybe have known, and others I hadn't, and just connecting with some of those people, and just through some conversation over coffee, them saying, some of the things they work on sparks an idea in my head. I'm like, oh, I remember a friend of mine talking about a similar project. Maybe I should connect you guys. Like those types of things just happen organically in our industry so often. And it happens at the highest levels too. So it's just it's something that should be happening with amongst us and our peers, and eventually, you know, I feel like it will grow to here's a producer that's going to offer you a role. It's no different than my acting teacher is doing a short film and they're offering me a role because they know me from their acting class, right? It's on a higher level, but people are working with their friends, on $1 million movie or $1 billion franchises in Hollywood, right? They're working with people that they like, the people that they've worked with before. So think about it from that perspective of doing it for the right reasons and kind of letting it grow organically rather than, or I gotta go meet Steven Spielberg. I gotta make
Yeah.
my goal to meet Steven Spielberg so that he'll give me a role. Like that's not the way the networking's gonna work.
It's certainly
We,
true of the DMV because that's how we met, and that's, this is a very tight community. Everybody knows everybody, so your reputation,
Precedes you.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but you can't just call Steve up and have lunch.
I love that, having the reach of my YouTube channel, some of the funniest comments or emails or messages that I'll get, some I remember specifically someone said, um, just a very short and sweet email. Hello, Kurt. Please give me the phone number of Dwayne The Rock Johnson.
Wow. And they meant
That's it.
it?
Oh yeah, just that one. Like one, I'm flattered that you would think that I have his contact info, but also like
That's going to make a great short, by the way, what he just said.
Give me the number of Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Just give me a minute. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, another funny email you probably got was, hey, Kurt, we'd love you to do this podcast called The Real DMV. And you had a chuckle.
Yeah, for sure.
No, I went to see what you guys had done already, and you guys are doing some cool stuff. So yeah, you guys had mentioned um, how it can be a struggle to create, create the YouTube channel, create the my website and the Actors Growth Lab community and all of that. And so I completely, completely understand the amount of work it takes to put on what people think, oh, you guys just sitting around talking to each other.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because it looks so
Right?
easy. But speaking of funny emails and funny things, because we like to have fun on this podcast sometimes, or we try to. What is something funny that you're allowed to talk about that happened to you on set, or maybe a blooper, or just a funny story from any time that you've been on set?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there have been quite a few. I think uh, one of the ones that happened pretty early on when I was still in Ohio. Um, Years ago, there was a show called Survivor's Remorse that was filmed, I think, in Georgia. Um, it was LeBron James was an executive producer on this show, and I think it was loosely kind of based on a high school athlete, making a transition into professional sports. I didn't really watch the show, but I knew like what was kind of involved. And they were filming not a whole episode, but a portion of an episode in Ohio because they were going to have LeBron be a guest star in one of the episodes in a particular scene. And in the scene, it was going to be LeBron was going to be playing poker with a bunch of the series regulars, and he was playing himself, right? He was just going to make a cameo as himself, and uh, and so they were shooting that scene uh, in Akron, where LeBron lived, at this mansion. And when they decided to do that, one of the series regulars is a Asian American male, and a local casting director got asked to find stand-ins for the actors for that day. And she reached out to me. She asked, "Do you want to be a stand-in on this show?" I had never been on a TV set before. They also mentioned that LeBron was going to be in that scene. I was like, "Oh, I could potentially meet LeBron." I was like, "Oh, absolutely." I'm like, it's um, something that I wanted to, I wanted to work on TV, and just to have an opportunity to be a stand-in and also potentially meet LeBron was an amazing opportunity. So I went on set and I did that, and they hired five of us, all local people, as stand-ins for all the five series regulars and LeBron that day that were going to be sitting around the poker table. None of us had been stand-ins before. None of us, like, because we're most of the local indie productions and you know local commercials and stuff. There's no stand-ins. Like, we're the actors, we're our own stand-ins. They don't have the budget to pay for another person just to stand there for you. So we weren't used to that. So it was all new to us. And so we were all kind of hanging out near craft services, just sitting at the table, just chatting with each other, waiting for them to call us. So finally, one of the PAs comes over and asks for second team to get on set to go do our jobs. But none of us had heard the term second team before. And she didn't know, the PA didn't know who she was looking for. She just knew somebody sent her to go get second team. She came over here. She looked at this table of guys, assumes that we are who she thinks, and she says, "Hey, we need second team." And we just look at her and we're like, "Okay, I mean, it's not us." We're not. And so she leaves, and then somebody else, I think, comes a little bit more frantic and says, "Hey, you guys know where second team is?" And we shake our heads no. And then they leave again. And then finally, one of the ADs comes over and is like, "You guys get over here." But what if it's like a perfect storm of, like, I don't think they would ever have five stand-ins. None of us have ever heard the term before.
Right.
It's just one of those things that is part of why I've done the YouTube channel. I've done the Actors Growth Lab community and stuff like that, because there are just things that they don't teach you. You just kind of have to learn and figure out. And you don't really hear like those terms in an acting class. You learn how to act in acting class, but they don't tell you what second team means.
Yeah, something as simple as back to one. When I was doing my first thing, all right, everybody, back to one. I'm like,
Well, that's the importance, though,
what's that?
of industrials and background work.
Exactly.
Getting on, I cut my teeth on some of those because I was like, I don't know, I've never been on set, but that's a low threat environment.
Right.
Nothing really bad's going to happen. They're going to go, "Hey, dude, that means get back over here." So,
Yeah. Even doing background work, right? Doing background work is a very low threat environment. Of if you can do background on a major production, you at least get to see what's happening there, and you don't have a lot of responsibility. So it's kind of, you're getting paid to learn at that point.
with your body of work, what are you most proud of, looking back?
Oh man, that's a tough question. There's so many things, and I don't want to like single out
Right.
we started off talking about how there's a lot of things that are out of our control, right? And I think that's one of those things that very grateful for some of the things that I've worked on. Currently, I'm recurring on a show called Will Trent on ABC. That was one of those things that my audition was for a one episode co-star in season one. And it has turned into a recurring character. I've been on like 18 episodes now
Saw that.
throughout
Yeah.
the three seasons. So it's one of those things where, yes, I did my job in the audition to book the job, but then the fact that the writers kept writing my character, the fact that the show got picked up for another season and another season, another season, none of that is, within my control. So I'm certainly proud of my work on that show, but also there was very little that I had to. I don't want to say very little that I had to do with, but in terms of it growing to where it is right now, it could easily have been just a one episode co-star and then it was over and then the show got canceled or whatever it is, which has happened to so many actors throughout the years. So it's I'm happy to have that, continuous work, and I always say it's to have something that feels like anything close to a steady job as an actor can,
Well, I'll tell you something you should be proud of. You're helping so many people.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. You've helped us.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know where to start. When I started, I just Googled, how do you start out? And your stuff just started coming up, and I just watched and watched and watched. And I learned a lot.
I appreciate you saying that. And that's something that for sure with the Actors Growth Lab community, I started it as, there's so many people that through my YouTube channel or just through the workshops that I've done have continued to reach out and needed more help. And I was like, all right, why don't I start this membership community? And that's grown to the point where at first I thought, all right, I got to be in there answering questions all the time. Anytime someone posts a question, I got to go in there and answer questions. But now, the community is kind of like thriving on its own. I'll look and somebody had posted a question. I'm like, oh, I have an answer, but then I'll look and there's already somebody else has commented. Another community member has already commented with their answer. I'm like, all right, I'll just type agree, right?
Thumbs up.
Yeah. So that's been really cool to see, is that it has really become a supportive community, not just from myself, but from all of our members.
It's an honor and a privilege to have you today. You've been such a resource and an inspiration to us. So I want to thank you for being on today and appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kurt.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And hearing those words from more people, like, it definitely inspires me to get more creative, get more videos out there. I know that it's helping people. So yeah,
keep doing what you're doing, please. It's helping a ton of people.
This was awesome.
Thank you so much.
Kurt, you're amazing. Thank you so much, man. We'll definitely be in touch.
Yeah, I appreciate it.